In this video, we're going to go through how this weapon works, how the damage is calculated, the math for it, and of course the optimal way to build it, the full HP build for it, and the low HP build. To get this gun, you can get it from the blueprint shop in the wish machine. Simply just buy it, or you can click F to make a wish and just get it from Echoes from the Rift, or add a wish and select the gun by guaranteed. So let's start off with the gun, how it works. We have the first line, hitting enemies grants 20% chance to trigger unstable bomber. This means that when you shoot the gun, you have a 20% chance to just trigger unstable bomber. We will not be really shooting our gun. The only time we will be shooting the gun is to stack buffs. Buffs such as this, explosive bonus, after triggering unstable bomber damage 5% for 8 seconds up to 5 stacks. Because if you throw the gun like this, you will not really be getting these stacks from this cradle right here. But if you shoot the gun, as you can see, we have 3 stacks right here, and you can just trigger one bomb. As long as you trigger one bomb, it's just going to stack up. That's how you can maintain it. Shoot a little bit and then throw the gun. The next line is reloading time is decreased by 40% and the reload is replaced by throwing your weapon. Now, throwing the weapon grants 75% chance to recover 75% of consumed ammo and 25% chance to recover 25% of consumed ammo. So basically, you either get back 75% of your ammo you throw, or you get back 25%. So every time you throw the weapon, it will just refill from your reserves. The last line is unstable bomber damage and range is increased by 10% for 10 seconds each time unstable bomber deals damage, up to 50%. So every time you throw the weapon, you will gain 1 stack above your health bar, which is here, and that is 10% range increase and 10% unstable bomber damage increase, which the unstable bomber damage multiplier is not shown anywhere in your inventory because that is a separate multiplier that is just hidden in the game. So when you throw it, you'll get 1 stack, 2 stacks, 5 stacks being the maximum. As you can see, if you open your inventory, you get an extra 50% bomb range because of that. So now, right clicking on the weapon, click details and click X on a keyword. Here you can see by default what unstable bomber does. So that is when you shoot the weapon and trigger unstable bomber. That is also applying to when you throw the weapon too. When you throw the weapon, you will deal a blast of 120% psi intensity damage, which after 0.1 seconds, with a blast radius of 1.5 meters, the damage decays over the explosion distance down to a minimum of 50%. This doesn't apply for throwing the weapon, so you can be as far as you want, you will still deal the same damage regardless how far you are. 6354, if you get super close to it, 6354. This gun is an elemental build, so that means that you do not need to star up this weapon to 6 stars in order to use it and get max damage. The max damage comes from 6 star of your gears, which is that. If you want to know how to properly convert your armor pieces and get 6 stars as quick as possible, then watch this conversion guide. It explains everything, how it works and how to efficiently do it. And then of course, if you want to know how to get fragments, then this is gonna be the video you'll have to watch. All of these links will be in the description. So now let's jump into the sheets, which this link will be in my description that you will find, as well as the G17 hazardous object damage calculator sheet. You will find this in that same sheet linked in. So let's start off with the beginner preset first. This is a full HP build, because if you are going to be running this as a low HP build as a beginner, you'll struggle a little bit because mostly you're going to be using this weapon in the open and just throwing it without any cover. So you'll have to tank enemies' damage. We're starting off with Reckless Bomber on the gun, simply because it is the best mod for this gun. It's just equipping this mod, it will convert to 4 unstable bomber damage bonus just because the weapon has 8% crit rate by default. So if I wear it and hold it, we have 8% by default. You can use Bombardier Souvenir, but you will lose that 4% unstable bomber damage. Not really worth it, because it's only worth it if you shoot the gun to get your stacks and then you still want to maintain high damage when throwing the weapon, then you can use this, but I recommend using Reckless Bomber. Supercharge is going to give you extra unstable bomber damage when you shoot the gun and trigger it. Keep in mind, throwing the gun does not give you damage increase, so this mod is like 10% useful. And you will only get 5% for 3 seconds when you shoot the gun, so this effect can disappear very quickly. Technically, you will always be shooting this gun if you want to keep the stacks, so this is also a mod that's not really worth to use. And now for the mask mods, we have Pinpoint Strike, which also this mask mod does not give you any damage increase if you throw the weapon on the target. Our bullet count is 24, so that means we also have to put 24 over here. Our elemental damage for explosion is 25.3, which is another multiplier that matters for this gun. And then we have 8.8 unstable bomber damage bonus because the mod itself gives us, and then the blast damage is 6%. That's why we have 25.3 here and 19.3 because of the calibration from the gun. So 8.8 here, and then let's turn this on. we're using tungsten ammo. You have to have copper ammo on. That way we have 286 psi intensity. And then you have to type that in here. Once you put that in, then you can equip your tungsten ammo, for example. And now you have 329, but you don't put that in. That way you tick this, that you're using tungsten. Last thing we need to do is check the common enemies, because we have 4%. And then if we go in game and throw the weapon, we're dealing 2,685 damage, which the calculator shows 2,686. I can't really replicate the exact damage because the numbers are rounded weirdly in the game. But it's 1 point off, which is literally the same thing. Now, if we were doing extra 35% damage from the pinpoint strike, then we would be getting 35 here as a multiplier, and we would be doing 3,626. However, we have pinpoint strike on, and as you can see, when we throw the gun, the damage is just not applied. Even if I equip it right now, then we would have to remove the 4% common enemies, and we will deal 2,583 now. Let's find out. And there it is, 2,582, 1 point off again. So now that you've seen that pinpoint strike doesn't work for the throwing gun, it's either up to you. Do you use pinpoint strike or delayed blast? If you do use delayed blast, that would be great if you use little jaws as a secondary or primary and hazardous object as a secondary. Then you could replace the Viper mask to unstable bomber top, which would be explosive front top. Although you will deal less damage with G17 hazardous object if you do use this, so the trade-offs are dependent on you. So my recommendation is just, if you shoot the gun, use pinpoint strike, and if you don't shoot the gun and you just spam R, then just use delayed blast. Many of these gun and mask mods don't really work for G17 because the gun would be just extremely overpowered if it did. So there's some limitations for it. But we still want to use these two mods because the unstable bomber suffix is going to help you a lot with the damage. So now for the helmet, we're going to be using Deviation Expert. Now, the reason why you want to use Deviation Expert is because you get 20% status damage, and you also get fire rate, which means your gun shoots faster if you shoot the gun. But really, there's no other option to use if you are planning to, for example, use Work of Proficiency. Reloading an empty mag grants 10% reload speed and 20% elemental damage lasting until next reload. This mod does not work for this gun because simply when you throw the gun, you're not going through the reload animation. The gun is getting bullets filled. So we have this mod here, Work of Proficiency, and I've equipped it. Our elemental damage is 25.3, and when I throw the gun, it's still 25.3. But now if we swap ammo like so, go to our elemental damage again, you can see that it goes to 45.3 now. And if I throw the gun again, it will disappear. And every time I throw it, it's not there. So we cannot really use Work of Proficiency. What's left? Well, there's nothing else. We only have Elemental Havoc, which is elemental damage 10% when HP is above 90%, and then 10% additionally. So that is your only option if you are maintaining your HP at all times at 100%, or if it doesn't drop below 90%, then you can use this. But I don't recommend that because most of the times you won't be able to, and it's better to just go with Deviation Expert. For the gloves, we're using Elemental Overload. Honestly, you can go with Elemental Overload. It doesn't matter if you go with Status Enhancement or Elemental Overload for the full HP build because Status and Elemental is almost equal to each other, so you will get 2% extra from status damage, which can result in more damage. So it's fine if you use whatever. Although keep in mind, if you have so much elemental and not so much status damage, which you can just check if you open your inventory, press C, and then you have 144 status damage, and then elemental is 98. That means we need more elemental and not more status. That means you would just put elemental overload on your gloves. For the top piece, for the full HP build, you can use whatever you really like. It could be rejuvenating. It could be head-on conflict, since you will be going near enemies, and if you have this, you'll just get reduced damage if you're near enemies. And if you take melee damage, you'll get even more damage reduction. For the shoes, we're going to be using Covered Advance. You just need to not take damage for 4 seconds, and then for 20 seconds, you will have a buff increase. Even if you take damage after you receive the buff, this will not disappear. And then on the bottom pieces, we're using Elemental Resonance. Now, this mod is dependent on how many mobs you hit. So what this mod does is, for each instance you deal of elemental from the previous mag, the next magazine will gain the elemental damage based off how many instances you procced. So you'll get 1% elemental damage for 1 explosion instance, which will stay for 15 seconds after reload, up to 24%. So let's just, if you throw your gun like so, you can see we do 1, 2, 3 instances, which means on the next throw, you will gain a 3% elemental damage increase. If you are hitting 2 enemies on a throw, that's 2 instances, and that means you will have 2% elemental damage increase. But you can also do this. You can shoot the gun, and now when you throw the gun, you will have 6% elemental damage. So you could do that. You could shoot the gun and then get many stacks so your next throw can do a lot of damage, but it is not recommended. You usually shoot with this gun just to keep the cradle stacks, which is the explosive bonus. So you just keep an eye on this buff right here, explosive bonus. If it's about to run out, you just shoot the target again to restack it quickly so you don't lose it. And that's really all you need to care about. But is elemental resonance the best? I would say yes, it is, because every throw you will be getting from 1% till, let's say, 8% or 6%, depending on how many mobs you hit. So the buff will be always there on each throw. However, for reload rampage, you could also use this mod. But the thing is with this mod is that if you don't kill an enemy for 2-3 throws, you basically have 0% damage increase. So it's not really worth to use this. Unless, of course, if the mod that you have on Reload Rampage, the substats are better than Elemental Resonance, then for sure you can replace it instead of Resonance. Now moving on to the armor pieces, we're using 2 shelter pieces for the full HP build, and then 3 Blackstone pieces. The shelter is needed for just 8% elemental flat increase, and Blackstone is going to be used for also extra elemental. Why we're not using 4 shelter pieces is because if we were using the shelter pieces, 3 or 4, you would be basically losing the stacks every time you throw the gun, so it's not worth at all. While with Blackstone on the second slot, you'll be gaining 10% elemental damage and 18% extra on third piece, which in total 28%. However, the second set bonus isn't that great. The stacks only last for 2 seconds, so if you don't throw the gun instantly after throwing it again, you will lose all the stacks, which means you'll keep only 80% elemental damage. Still though, Blackstone is the best armor set for the full HP build. There's nothing else you could really use. Then for the calibration, you will want rapid 2 times elemental. The gun will have more bullets in the mag if you put rapid, which gives you magazine capacity, which means you will deal more damage from the gun, which I'll explain how it works later. For the food buffs, you will want Stardust Energy Drink as one first buff for the drink. If you are a chef class, then first drink will be this, and then second drink will be Whimsical Drink. The food buff's first buff will be Layered Galaxy, and the second buff will be Popcorn. Now, instead of Popcorn, you can also use Spring Roll, and it's actually better than Popcorn. And the reason why it's better is because if you eat the Spring Roll, make sure you make a preset that is literally nothing equipped, and that you have everything unequipped, low HP, and make sure you're like 1 HP like so. Then once you do that, you eat the food buff, and now as you can see, we gained 26.2 elemental damage from just eating the food buff. That is not a lot. Mainly from just eating this food buff, you can gain up to 41.4 elemental damage if you use the chef also on it. I'm gonna eat it multiple times just to demonstrate you guys. You can see it has a chef, and that it increases elemental damage by 5% or by 15%, and then it doubles it if the HP is below 40%. Your HP 40% is almost around here, so if you're above that, it's not gonna work and not gonna give you the effect. So let's eat it again. As you can see, our elemental went down to 18.3, and that is like 6.6% elemental damage, doubled if your HP is lower, which would be 13.2, and then if you apply the 38% chance of the chef buff to the base, that would be 18.2 or something, but it's around 6.7 or something. Basically, Spring Rolls is very RNG to use, so if you don't want to waste your food buff, like so, and eat it over and over, you can see I even got even less, man, like 15.9. It's just extremely RNG, so it's up to you if you want to like spam to eat it to get a look at that, like high damage bonus. There you go. That is really good. Now that is about 14% increase that we just got there, doubled, and then of course the chef applies. If you're a min-maxer and you don't care about the ingredients, then you can definitely use the Spring Rolls, which is way better than Popcorn. But if you're getting less than 20% elemental damage, it's not worth to use it, and then just stick to Popcorn instead with Layered Galaxy. Also, if you're going to be using this gun for bossing, then use Hot Dog. As a secondary, you will need to use Bingo for marking, which you will need to put Vulnerability Amplifier as well to gain extra damage 8%, and you'll just need to shoot a target to mark it and then swap to your main gun. But really, I don't recommend using this gun for bossing at all. Just swap to another preset like Little Jaws. Also, Little Jaws guide right here if you want to know. So have these two. Both of them are compatible with the G17 mods that you will have and be using. So that's insanely good. Lastly, for the hide, you will want to put Lucky Rabbit hide on the mask. The reason why we don't use Golden Wool is because it's very RNG. So from 1% to 12% status damage, it's always fluctuating. While the Lucky Rabbit fur, it will always give you 10% elemental damage every single throw, which is the clear winner here. Also, elemental damage is very needed because we have more status damage after buffs, and elemental damage is way lower. In the G17 min-max sheet, you can see the total status damage bonus, which is here, 190, and the total elemental damage, 182.6. Now, of course, if you didn't need the spring rolls and you went with popcorn instead, this would be your elemental damage, way lower than status damage. Now, as you can see, here's the math for spring roll with Layered Galaxy. This is with 41.4. Multiplied 2 times because we have Spring Roll and Layer Galaxy. If you max out the food buff and get super high, literally does way more damage than the Popcorn, because Popcorn only gives you 13.8. Now we're going to move on to the low HP build, which is here. The mods do not change. We are only putting Lunar Suffix on the helmet and Lunar Suffix on the top piece. If you guys want to know how to farm the Lunar mods very efficiently, very easily, all you need to do is watch this video. How to learn the gravity route. You can gain up to 2,000 or by average 1,600 crystals, depends on your luck. Very easy. And once you get it, you click on events here, click on Visional Wheel, Starfall Collection, Bash Shop, buy the mod box over here. Don't buy the purple crate, buy the gold one. You will get higher color, substats, and more rare mods. And also have a chance to get 3 of them instead of 2. For the low HP build, we are replacing the Blackstone with 4 treacherous pieces. And the reason why we're using 4 treacherous pieces is because, based from my experience, we are ditching the 8% elemental damage instead of 2 shelter, because you will just take hella damage, man. You're going to be throwing the weapon out in the open, and everyone's going to be shooting you, especially if you're fighting Rosetta. So it's just best to get 4 treacherous pieces. What's that gonna do is when you have 4 pieces of it, it will generate a shield equal to max HP of 20% when your HP is below 40%. So with treacherous pieces, your HP is always below 40%, and it spawns the shield of a cooldown 8 seconds. And of course, if you do use treacherous, then you will need to make yourself this 4 polluted water together with the 4 dirty water, and that will be a recipe for reducing sanity. This will reduce 800 of your sanity every sip. Unfortunately, to craft this, you will need to be a chef class, or you can just ask other people to do it for you. But as you can see, in 1 sip, it will lower your sanity like this. Boom. And we're using Lone Wolf shoots because there's nothing else to use, so we're using it just for magazine capacity. You could also, if you do not want the magazine capacity, just use Gravity Tides. It will give you jump height plus 10%, and which means you will jump higher, which you'll be able to maintain your character in air longer and throw the gun easier. The calibration is the same, the food buffs are the same as the full HP build. So, with all of that, let's now scroll down to the mutations. This gun will be cooked if you are going to be killing bosses with this mutation. Get toughened. I don't know why you would use this gun for bossing, but hey, if you do, I'm just warning you. If you see this mutation, get prepared for some cookery, man. You ain't gonna like it, because what this does is when you fight a boss and throw it on the boss, you will be doing minus 40% damage every throw, and you cannot get rid of this effect until the SILO changes mutation every Monday, every week. Mutation is only for mobs. As you can see, battlefield mutation means it's for mobs, while boss mutation means it's only for the boss. Enemies will just have more HP, but the very first throw you do on them, it will deal 30% extra damage, which is massive. It's a separate multiplier. You're gonna most likely one-tap them. So it's worth. So if you see this on a SILO, you can easily pass the SILO with this gun. You'll literally have no problems at all, trust. Then we have the Tierlist takedown mutation here. And with this one, you will actually have to shoot the boss every single time to maintain the stacks. Because what this does is they take 60% damage less, and whenever you shoot a shot, you will get 10% damage bonus up to 8 stacks, and then you gain an extra 15% at full stacks. And this effect disappears if you deal no shots, like if you don't shoot the boss for after 3 seconds, and then you'll have to restack it again. So it's just going to be annoying to use this gun as well on bosses. It's actually even worse than Get Toughened, especially if you don't shoot with the gun and only throw it. It's not going to be fun, brother. And now we have the last mutation, which is not that bad, not so great either, but it's decent enough. It's the one where boss will take 30% less damage, so minus 30% damage reduction. And when you make it burn with Boom Boom, you will negate that 30% and you will deal extra 25%. In total, you will deal 55% extra damage, which is a separate multiplier, which will give you so much damage increase. So you will need to swap to Boom Boom every single time when it stops burning, apply the burn, and then start throwing the gun basically on the boss or on the mobs. This mutation can happen on the mobs and on the boss. And the way you can tell if it's on the boss or the mob, on the mobs, it's a red mutation, and on the boss, it's a gray mutation. This is going to be the build for it. You will want to put Ember's gun on the Boom Boom, and that's about it. The build is the rest is the same. And if you want to see the changes, just hover your mouse on here. Now let's go to G17 min-max sheet here on the bottom. click it. Here it shows every single substat for every single multiplier. So we maxed out range, unstable bomber range is 140. 50% comes from the mask when you equip it by default, and then 50% extra comes from when you ramp it up to 5 stacks. In total, 140 if you have unstable bomber suffix on the mask and on the gun. Of course, unstable bomber damage is a hidden multiplier, which I should really say that. Hidden multiplier. The damage is coming from the mask mainly because since we have 50% range by default, that is getting converted to 25%. It's all explained here. Then another 25% is coming from the 50 stacks of the range. That's the mask's passive. And then the 20% is converted to 10 and 20 is again 10. In total, we have 120 unstable bomber damage converted from the range. The range is the most important substat in this build because the more you have, the more damage you will deal. All of that is getting converted to damage. Then we have unstable bomber damage bonus. It's a bonus, not bomber damage. These two are different multipliers. Don't get confused by them. Bonus, which you can see in the inventory. If you paid attention very close enough, the mask says it gives you unstable bomber damage. While, for example, if you go in your mods, it gives you unstable bomber damage too, but it's technically bonus because if you open your inventory and click C, you can see that we have unstable bomber damage bonus 12.4. If I unequip this mod, we will lose 4.8 and extra 4%, so in total 8.8. And now we have 3.6, which the 3.6 is also on the mask. If I unequip that, now we have 0. Lastly, this will be your status damage, elemental, elite enemies damage, and normal enemy damage. I do not include gray ones because I don't use this weapon for bossing. If you use this weapon for bossing once again, just why? Use this gun for mobbing. That's what it's good for. Now for the substats to focus, you want elemental damage, status damage, damage against gray ones, or damage against elites. The gray ones is of course if you're bossing. Replace the gray ones to normal enemies if you are mobbing. Substats to prioritize in order is gray ones / normal enemies / elite enemies, depending on what you kill. If you don't know what these are, what are gray ones, normal enemies, and elite enemies, I have the perfect video explaining that, which enemies are gray ones, elites, and normal enemies. Just watch it and you will never ask any questions again what it is. Unstable bomber gun and mask, you will want first priority will be unstable bomber damage bonus, which will be gold. The second priority will be unstable bomber range because the range will benefit you a lot, especially that the range is getting converted to extra damage, which is here. You will get 20% extra if you have 40% range from just the gun mod. That will be for your gun. And then the third one and the fourth one is going to be normal enemies, 10%. It's actually 8% because it's purple here. And it's all up to you. Do you want normal enemies or do you want elite enemies? It's totally fine to have green elite enemies here and gold normal enemies. Just whatever you prefer more, try to get that mod substat. I would prefer to have a little bit of elites balanced together with normal enemies since we already have a lot of normal enemies, which is like what, 76%. It's enough. Like if all of this was 10%, you would have total 90%, but it's too much, man. I'd rather have 8% and balance out a little bit of elites. But again, it's all up to you. Then we have unstable bomber suffix for the mask. So the same substats order, bomber damage, first one, range, second one, and then third, normal enemies, and fourth, elite enemies. Now, if you're bossing, then you will want the same order, unstable bomber damage. The second will be range. The third one will be gray ones. And the green one will be blast damage. Blast damage is not really that important. It's just elemental damage. You can't really get high. These first unstable bomber damage and range is more important than blast damage because it scales way better. We already have blast damage of 182.6. As you can see here, it goes into the same multiplier as elemental damage. So it's not going to benefit us that much as range and unstable bomber damage bonus. And that's it for the substats. The color codes of the cell here is marked in LUNAR, which is here. The pinpoint strike, the unstable bombers are darker reds, which is here. We have only one talent piece on the gloves here. And then we have downstar 2 pieces on the shoes and bottoms. All right, now let's jump into the cradle. So you'll need anti-coherence, status enhancement, elemental sense, deviant energy defense, aerial suppression, rapid aid, tactical leap, and then explosive bonus. Now, instead of rapid aid, you can remove that and replace it with energy surge. While airborne, your deviations are going to recover energy, and it's just going to help you maintain energy, recover it faster. But really, if you don't really care about rapid aid and don't care about heals, or if you don't even heal. But if you don't need this, then keep the rapid aid. As well as for aerial suppression, you will need this too while airborne because mostly you're going to be using the starter's double jump. You'll just jump, throw the gun, jump again, throw the gun. And you'll just spam it over and over. Now with that being there, I highly recommend to put, don't look at the armor piece, I'm just showing you the height right here. You will want to put lucky rabbit fur on your shoes, which will give you jump height 15% on the second jump. So it won't work for the first jump, it will work for the second jump, which will make you jump higher. And of course, if you even put the jump height gloves, this is how high you will jump with this weapon. You're literally Mario, brother. So you will just jump like so, throw the gun, easy peasy. You will need the tactical leap to be in air, and when you are in air, you will be gaining these tactical leap cradle perk, which will give you 20% damage against deviants. This only works in silos and does not work in monoliths. You will want to use Shattered Maiden, of course. How without that? There's nothing else you could really use. Unless you don't want to use Shattered Maiden, then just use a Lone Wolf dog, which will get aggro for you, and that's about it. That's its only use it's gonna get. But with the Shattered Maiden, if you are dealing with a tanky elite or something, or a boss fight, you summon it, and the damage the mob that is marked by the Shattered Maiden will receive more by 80%, which is a separate multiplier, which will help you in the damage a lot. So that's your only option, the best. The other option is, of course, you can use a mini feaster, which is this, but I just don't recommend it. Just go with a Shattered Maiden. Lastly, if you go down here and you click on ranking, there's a ranking for this weapon. So overall rank is going to be SS for AoE, which means it's the best gun for AoE. Literally, there's nothing better that beats it. But if you're going to be using this gun as for a single target, for bossing, it's not going to work that well. Of course, it's going to perform, but not that well. It still can do damage, but not well. Especially if you have mutations, like really bad mutations. For that silo, the damage is going to be even lower. So for general use, this gun is going to be the best for AoE damage. That means for clearing silos, clearing through mobs from start till the boss room is going to be amazing. So basically, almost for every single silo, this gun is the SS tier, except for PHI. It's A tier, I put it in because in PHI, shield mobs are shielded, which means if you throw the gun outside their shields, it will not do damage at all. You have to be throwing the gun exactly inside their bubbles, so which means you have to run in and throw it. Rest of the silos are SS. Maybe for Delta it could be S, but I'll still keep it SS because you just need to run in, throw the gun, and that's about it. Now for these silo bosses, X1 is F tier, for Sigma boss is B tier. Literally every single boss, the rest of them is just B tier because you throw one gun every like 3 seconds or something. Well, you could just use Little Jaws or something, which will kill the boss way quicker than this pistol would. So I would just swap to another preset when bossing. But yeah, that's about the ranking for this gun. Overall rank, I would put this gun as S tier. But for AoE, SS tier, and for single target, A to B tier. I mean, this is not a single target gun, so, you know, that's all I can say. Now, one quick tip I have with the Layered Galaxy is you're going to be getting, obviously, elemental damage when you're mid-airborne. Now, to properly use this buff, you can actually use it improperly and not even deal damage. So, get the starter's drink, of course. This is our stats right now, 19.3, and when we jump, we get 41.4 extra because we have a level 5 chef, which boosts us to 38%, which is 41.4 with buffs. So this will be your damage airborne, and this will be your damage when you're not airborne. You want to throw the gun as soon as you start jumping like this. If you don't jump, this is going to be your damage, 987. So if you're throwing the gun when you are landing on the ground like this, as you see, I threw it and I landed on the ground, you will basically not even do damage. You have to throw it exactly when you start jumping. Because when the gun, like the projectile starts showing up, that's when the damage is calculated. So if you threw that when you are standing still, when you're not jumping and airborne, the damage will not be applied. You have to throw it when you're airborne. So that's just a little mistake some people could make. I'm just pointing it out. All right, and now finally, let's go to the base damage calculator and let's explain how the gun's math is working. So if we take a look at the gun's stats right now, you can see that the damage depends on 50% plus the amount of ammo you have in the mag, multiplied by 18% psi intensity, capping at 480%. So for PvE, this is the formula. For PvP, you apply another multiplier of 0.28, which will be minus 72% damage reduction for PvP. Now that's why I have the calculator for you guys out there, so I can just reduce the headache for you. But really, if you still want to learn how the multipliers work, I will just show it for one example for PvE and PvP. So I'm gonna just showcase this on a tier 1 pistol. So as you remember, if you right click on the gun, go to details and keyword, we have 20% psi intensity over here increase. Before it was 100, now it's 20% buffed. So you'll have to include in the multiplier. We have 13 bullets in the gun right now, so we will need to include 13 for the formula. The chart here, the cheat sheet you can use, basically at 13 bullets, you must include 2.84 decimal multiplier, which is converted to 184% if you want to calculate it in percentages, which would be basically here, 13, 184. But if you want to do it by yourself without the calculator help, then you would just take your psi intensity, 1.5, which is displayed over here. Then we take the 2.84 multiplied by 2.84 like so. That will be your damage with the bullets applied. Then from there, it just starts like so. If you have status damage, you put another multiplier. Like if you had, let's say, 1% status damage, then you would just literally do 1.01. Now, elemental damage, if you have that, then you do the same. You take the 39.4 multiplied by 1.394. The same happens for unstable bomber damage bonus. For common enemies, you just add more multipliers like this. Now, if you are confused how to write, like, I don't know, 19.2 or something, then just divide it by 100. And you just need to write 0.192. Instead of the 0, though, you add 1 because you want to apply the base damage. So if that was 19.2 unstable bomber damage bonus that you want to add, then you would just write like this, 1.192. And that will be your formula for this damage right here, 595.8. Lastly, we have the 1.2 because by default, unstable bomber has 20% increase. So 120%, you would just put 1.2 and this is 20% here. Our damage will be 594 rounded. Let's check that if it matches in game. As you can see, 594, that was at 13 bullets, this multiplier. What if we are throwing the gun at 12 bullets? So that would be reduced because each bullet will reduce the damage by 18%. This 2.66 is what you would have to put over here. So instead of 284, you put 266. And now your damage will be 556 when throwing the gun at 12 bullets. And of course, if you throw the gun at 0 bullets, then you would have to do the same thing. Instead of 266, just put the 0.5, and your damage will be 105. There you go, 105. It's that simple. More bullets you have, more damage you're gonna do. Less bullets you have, less damage you do. So this is why it's not worth shooting this gun, and this is why you need the calibration of rapid, so you have the most ammo. This is capped out at 24 bullets, so if you are throwing the gun at 25 bullets, you will deal the same damage as at 24 bullets. So we're gonna throw the weapon at 24 bullets. We do 5, 2, 4, 1. And now we're gonna throw the weapon at 25 bullets. We still do 5, 2, 4, 1. Even if I throw it at 26 bullets, 5, 2, 4, 1. So we are capped at 24 bullets. But if you throw it at 23 bullets, then you will deal exactly 5071 with 23 bullets, being the cap 364%. So now you can see that the calculator is 3 damage off, and that is due to the rounding in game. I can't really get that to match it exactly, so it's about like that. So the formula for the weapon is, as the game says, it's 0.5 plus the amount of ammo you have in the clip, and that is multiplied by 0.18. You don't really touch these two values. You only need to touch this. So for example, if you had 20 ammo, you would put 20 in here. And because we have 20 ammo in here, this just takes the 20 bullet count here and just puts it in for you. So that's going to be 4.1, 310%. All right, and now for PvP, the formula is the same. If you're throwing the 0 bullets, then you just put the value of 0 here, multiplied by 0.18. Then you also have to include the multiplier of 0.28. And then a multiplier of 0.9. This is because every player has minus 10% damage reduction, which if you convert 10%, that would be 0.9. Which if you convert that to decimals, that would be 0.1. But since we're removing 10%, you want to put the 0.9. And since it has 72% damage reduction, you want to put 0.28. And that formula will result you in this decimal right here, which if you put it in a calculator, if you're throwing at 0 bullets, you will be dealing minus 87.4% damage, which is 0.126 if you converted that to decimal. So we have 20 bullets in the mag. So I equipped all the armor pieces. Now I could be equipping this top piece, but I can't because this calculator is made specifically just for the wiper mask. So if you were increasing the stacks, it would be wrong calculation because it gives you 50% bomber damage every stack increase. While if you have only the top piece equipped, that would be only 10% damage increase here because the stacks are also converting the range from 10% to 5. That's why we're getting 15% each stack. So instead, I will just equip a random piece of armor and then the wiper mask. So we have a total of 516 psi intensity. And of course, our range is going to be 50 and we have only one stack. We do 896. If at 0 stacks, we did 800, which, as you can see, it matches. Of course, if you don't want to use a calculator, you can still do this by yourself, but it's just going to take you some time to do it. So since we have 125 psi intensity, the values here already, like at 20 bullets, the damage reduction is already calculated. So you don't need to include this. It's already in the formula. So all you need to do is just type the value over here, the scaling factor, and then the 1.2, and that will be your damage at 20 bullets when you throw the gun. At 18 bullets, if you're throwing the gun at 18 bullets, just copy the value, put it over here, and that will be your 141 damage, rounded to that. Let's see. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the G17 hazardous object. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new today. If you guys enjoy my content, always make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Of course, if you guys have any questions, you can join my Discord and ask there, or just leave it down below in the comment section. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and peace out.